Hey there, folks. It's me, just a regular guy with a story that's anything but regular. My name's Wilson, Captain Wilson if we're being formal, and for over 20 years, I flew planes, big commercial ones, crisscrossing the sky like it was my second home. I've seen sunrises over the Rockies, storms brewing over the Atlantic, passengers laughing, crying, sleeping, you name it. I thought I'd seen it all, but on February 15th, 2025, everything I thought I knew, everything I believed about life, death, and what comes after, it all shattered. I didn't just crash a plane that day, I crashed into something bigger, something eternal. And what Jesus showed me, it's why I'm here, talking to you now. So grab a coffee, settle in, because this isn't just my story. It's a warning, a plea, a hope. Let's start where it all began. That morning, crisp and cold, dawned like any other in Toronto. I woke up at 4:30 a.m., same as always. The world still dark outside my window. The air bit at my fingers as I fumbled with my keys, my breath puffing out in little clouds. I'd flown this route 100 times. Toronto to a small regional hub, nothing fancy, just a quick hop. I pulled into Pearson International Airport around 6 a.m., the hum of jet engines already rumbling through the terminal. My co-pilot Ryan was waiting by the gate, his usual grin in place. "Morning, Captain," he said, handing me a coffee. Black, no sugar, just how I liked it. We laughed about something dumb, probably the weather, as we ran through our pre-flight checks. The plane, a sleek little regional jet, gleamed under the hangar lights. Instruments, green. Weather, clear. Fuel, full. Everything was perfect, textbook even. I remember thinking, this is going to be an easy one. The first hour in the air was smooth as glass. I leaned back in my seat, the hum of the engines a steady heartbeat beneath us. Through the cockpit window, the sky stretched out, endless, blue, serene. Below, the patchwork of Ontario farmland rolled by, dotted with barns and sleepy towns. In the cabin, passengers were doing their thing, some dozing, heads lolling against the seats, others murmuring over newspapers or tapping away at laptops. I glanced at Ryan, his hands steady on the controls, and gave him a nod. "Good day to fly," I said. He smirked. "Aren't they all?" And for a moment they were. Then out of nowhere it hit. A sharp beep cut through the cockpit, shrill, insistent. I snapped forward, eyes darting to the dashboard. A red light blinked. Electrical malfunction. My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "All right, Ryan, let's run it down." I'd seen this before. Minor glitches. Nothing to lose sleep over. We flipped switches, checked circuits, followed protocol. But before we could breathe, another alert flared up. Then another. The cockpit lights flickered, dimmed, flared back to life. The autopilot coughed and died. I grabbed the yoke, my knuckles whitening as the plane lurched, a sickening dip that sent my coffee splashing across the console. "What the hell's happening?" Ryan muttered, his voice tight. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The controls felt sluggish, heavy, like the plane was fighting me. "Mayday, mayday," I barked into the radio. "Flight 527, experiencing total systems failure, requesting immediate assistance." Static, nothing but static. The altimeter spun downward, numbers dropping too fast. 10,000 feet, 8,000, 6,000. My mind raced, options, procedures, anything to pull us out. Ryan's hands flew across the panel, rebooting systems, cursing under his breath. The ground loomed closer, a blur of green and gray rushing up to meet us. I twisted in my seat, hit the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, forcing calm into my voice, "brace for impact." I saw Ryan's eyes then, wide, terrified, mirroring mine. And then, blackness. I expected pain, fire, chaos. I expected to feel the plane crumple around me, to hear screams, to taste blood. But there was nothing. No sound, no jolt, just stillness. A soft, warm light bloomed around me, alive somehow, pulsing like it had a heartbeat. I blinked, or thought I did, and suddenly I wasn't in the cockpit anymore. I was floating, weightless, above a scene I'll never forget. Below me sprawled the wreckage, twisted metal, flames licking at the fuselage, debris scattered across a snowy field. Rescue crews swarmed the site, their shouts faint, distant. I saw them hauling bodies from the ruin, passengers limp, lifeless. And then I saw me. There I was, slumped in the pilot seat, my head lolling, my face pale, my chest still. Blood streaked the cracked windshield where I'd hit it. I should have screamed, should have felt my heart seize with horror, but I didn't. Instead, peace washed over me, deep, unshakable, like a tide pulling me under. I drifted there, watching, as firefighters battled the blaze, as paramedics dragged Ryan from the co-pilot's seat, his breathing shallow but alive. They didn't even try with me, my body was too far gone. And yet I wasn't afraid. I wasn't sad. I was free. Then I heard it. Wilson. A voice not loud, not soft, just there, powerful, eternal, like it came from everywhere and nowhere. I turned and my breath, if I still had breath, caught in my throat. He stood before me radiant, towering yet gentle. Jesus. His eyes locked onto mine, piercing, knowing, filled with a love so vast I couldn't comprehend it. His robe shimmered, not white exactly, but alive with light, shifting, glowing. I hovered above the crash, the world below blurring, fading until it was just me and him. Time stretched, slowed, stopped. I saw everything, the chaos, the flames, the rescuers, but it didn't matter anymore. He mattered. Wilson, he said again, his voice rumbling through me, warm, steady. You are here for a reason. I tried to speak, to ask why, how, but my mouth wouldn't move. He didn't need words. He knew my thoughts before I did. You must return, he said, his tone firm, urgent. There is something you must tell them. My mind spun. Tell them what? I thought, desperate, confused. He stepped closer, and in that moment, the light around him pulsed, shifted, and the world changed. Suddenly, I wasn't above the crash anymore. I was somewhere else, everywhere else. Before my eyes, Earth unfolded, but not the Earth I knew. It was layered, split, like a veil had lifted. On the surface, life looked normal. People walking, talking, laughing in cities and towns. Cars hummed along highways, kids played in yards, screens glowed in every hand. But beneath that, hidden, a war raged. Shadows slithered through the streets. Dark shapes, faceless yet alive, creeping into homes, offices, churches. They whispered, soft, insidious, relentless. Take the easy way, they hissed. You deserve this. Why wait? God doesn't care. I heard them, felt them, their voices weaving into minds, planting seeds. People didn't see, didn't know, but I did. Jesus raised his hand, and the whispers grew louder, sharper, a chorus of lies. I saw a woman in a grocery store hesitating over a bill, then nodding as a voice murmured, You're owed this. Take it. I saw a man in a pew, head bowed as a shadow breathed, God's too busy for you. My chest tightened, my heart, or whatever I had left, aching. Lord, I managed, my voice trembling. They don't even know they're being influenced. His eyes, sorrowful, met mine. That, he said, is the greatest deception of all. The vision shifted, fast, dizzying. Now I saw the future. Not distant, not some far-off apocalypse, but close, too close. Cities buzzed, taller, brighter, tech humming in every corner. People moved through life, seamless, efficient. I saw a man step into a shop, no wallet, no phone, just a wave of his hand. A tiny light glowed under his skin, a chip, a mark. The cashier smiled. The transaction clicked, done. I turned to Jesus, my voice shaking. Lord, is this the mark of the beast? He shook his head, slow, deliberate. Not yet, he said, but this is how it begins. He showed me more, layer by layer, like peeling back a wound. It started small, a device, a convenience. No more fumbling for cards, no more lost IDs, Just a scan, quick, easy. Then it grew. Stores stopped taking cash, then cards, then anything but the chip. Jobs demanded it, schools required it, hospitals wouldn't treat you without it. I saw lines of people, smiling, eager, rolling up their sleeves. It's just technology, they said. Christians too. It's not worship, it's progress. But I saw what they couldn't. The spiritual cost, the slow fade of their prayers, the dimming of their light. Subscribe to this channel, I'd say if I were recording this right now, leaning into the mic with a grin, because we're just getting to the heavy stuff. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's next. The vision deepened, darker now. I saw a family at dinner, mom, dad, 2 kids, laughing, warm, normal, but their words felt off, scripted, their smiles too perfect. Then I noticed it, a glow in their wrists, a flicker behind their eyes. Their devices weren't just tools, they were part of them, programming them. They thought they chose their words, their actions, but they didn't. I turned to Jesus, my voice breaking. Why can't they see? He sighed, heavy, mournful. Because they've given up their ability to hear me. I watched, helpless, as the world split further. On one side, the chipped, the compliant, lived smooth, sterile, hollow. Their churches stood, but their faith didn't. On the other, the faithful, struggling, hunted but alive. They hid in basements, forests, clinging to each other, to him. I saw a mother rationing bread that never ran out, a man praying as help arrived unasked. Their light wasn't tech, it was divine, unshakable. Jesus leaned closer, his voice steady. My people will not be abandoned, he said. As I fed Elijah, as I led Israel, I will care for them. Then came the end, or the beginning. Darkness swelled, thick, suffocating, rolling over the world. The chip stood still, blind to it, lost. But the faithful saw, felt, and just as it closed in, light, blinding, fierce, tore through the sky. I trembled. What is this? I whispered. The division of souls, he said. Final. Absolute. And then he looked at me, urgent, loving. Wilson, tell them. Warn them. Some will listen, some will wake, but time is short. Before I could beg for more, I felt it. A pull, gentle then fierce. His smile held me, then faded. I hurtled backward, fast, faster, through a tunnel of light and shadow. The warmth of him vanished, replaced by cold, weight, pain. My chest heaved, lungs burning, a beeping piercing my ears. We've got a pulse, someone shouted. My eyes fluttered open. Hospital lights, blinding, stark. A doctor stared, stunned. Captain Wilson, can you hear me? I nodded, weak, aching, alive. So there I was, folks. 4:30 a.m., the alarm blaring in my ears like a cruel joke. I groaned, rolled over, my hand fumbling to silence it. The room was dark, quiet, except for the soft breathing beside me. My wife, Sarah, still asleep, her hair spilling across the pillow like a golden river. I lay there a moment, listening, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. Love, maybe, or dread. I didn't know then it'd be the last time I'd hear her like that. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake her, my bare feet cold against the hardwood. In the kitchen, I brewed coffee, the bitter scent curling around me like an old friend. Sarah stirred then, patting in, her eyes heavy with sleep. Be safe up there, she murmured, pressing a kiss to my cheek, her lips warm, soft, fleeting. I smiled, nodded. Always am. Oh, how I wish I'd held her longer. The drive to Pearson International was a blur, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn chill, the radio humming some old country tune about lost love. I pulled into the lot at 6 a.m., the airport alive already, buzzing with travelers, the roar of engines shaking the air. Ryan met me at the gate, his grin wide, infectious. Morning, Captain, he said, tossing me that coffee. Black, no sugar, steaming in my hands. You look like hell. I chuckled, dry, tired. Feel like it too. We bantered through the pre-flight checks, fuel levels, hydraulics, navigation. All green, all good. The plane gleamed under the hangar lights, sleek, sturdy, a beast I'd tamed 1,000 times. I clapped Ryan on the shoulder. Let's get her up. My voice was steady, but inside something flickered. A whisper of unease I brushed off. Takeoff was flawless, the jet climbing smooth, steady, into that endless blue. I settled into my seat, the yoke familiar under my palms. The engines hum a lullaby. Through the windshield, the sun peeked over the horizon, painting the clouds gold, pink, a sight that never got old. Ryan flipped through his checklist, whistling softly, off key. Good day to fly, I said, meaning it, feeling it. He smirked. Aren't they all? And for an hour they were. Passengers murmured behind us, businessmen tapping at laptops, a kid giggling somewhere, a woman snoring faintly. I glanced down, saw the quilt of farmland below, peaceful, timeless. My chest loosened, my mind quiet. This is why I do it, I thought. This freedom, this sky. Then chaos. A beep, sharp, vicious, stabbed the air. I jolted upright, heart slamming, eyes snapping to the dashboard. Red light, blinking, screaming, electrical malfunction. Ryan, I said, voice low, tight. Talk to me. He leaned in, hands steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. Checking it now, he muttered, fingers flying across switches. I'd handled this before. Glitches, hiccups, nothing to panic over, right? But then another alert flared, piercing, relentless, then a third. The cockpit lights flickered, dimmed, surged back, erratic, wild. My breath hitched, my grip on the yoke tightening till my knuckles ached. Autopilot's out, Ryan said, voice rising, cracking. The plane dipped, sudden, brutal, a sickening lurch that flung my coffee across the console, scalding my hand. I didn't feel it. Fear burned hotter. Mayday, mayday, I shouted into the radio, my voice hoarse, desperate. Flight 527, total systems failure, need help now. Static crackled back, mocking, empty. The altimeter spun, 10,000 feet, 9,000, 8,000, too fast, too damn fast. My mind screamed, restart the system, switch to manual, something, anything. Ryan cursed, loud, frantic, rebooting panels, slamming buttons. The controls fought me, sluggish, stubborn, like wading through mud. I heard it then, muffled gasps from the cabin, a child's cry, a man yelling, "What's happening?" My stomach twisted, guilt clawing at me. These people trusted me. I yanked the intercom, forced calm I didn't feel. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice shaking despite myself, brace, brace for impact. Ryan's eyes met mine, wide, wet, pleading. I nodded once, firm. We're in this together. Then, nothing. Blackness swallowed me, sudden, complete. No roar of impact, no searing pain, just silence. I waited for the end, shattering metal, fire, my body breaking. But it didn't come. Instead, a light bloomed, soft, warm, alive, wrapping me like a mother's arms. I blinked, disoriented, my chest heaving with breaths I didn't need. And then I saw, oh God, I floated, weightless, above the wreckage, a mangled heap of steel and flame in a snowy field. Smoke curled skyward, thick, black, choking. Firefighters swarmed, their shouts faint, tinny, like an old radio. Paramedics hauled bodies, too still, too broken, from the ruin. My passengers, my responsibility, gone. Tears stung my eyes, but I couldn't wipe them. I had no hands, no form, just me. Then I saw myself, slumped in the cockpit, head lolling, blood streaking my face, my uniform torn, soaked red. My chest didn't rise, my eyes didn't blink. I was dead, undeniably, horribly dead. My heart, or whatever I had left, should have shattered, should have screamed with terror, grief, but it didn't. Peace flooded me, deep, overwhelming, a tide I couldn't fight. I drifted, staring at my lifeless body, the flames licking closer, the rescuers not even trying to pull me out. They moved Orion instead, his chest rising, faint, fragile. He's alive, someone yelled, and relief pierced me, sharp, bittersweet. Wilson! The voice hit me, strong, eternal, rumbling through my core. I turned slow, trembling, and there he was. Jesus! His presence stole my breath, if I'd had any left. Light poured from him, not blinding but alive, shifting, golden, warm, like a sunrise you could touch. His robe flowed, shimmering, his face calm, fierce, loving all at once. Those eyes, oh, those eyes, locked onto mine, piercing, infinite, seeing every crack, every scar in my soul. I wanted to fall, to hide, to weep, but I couldn't move. I didn't need to. He knew me, every flight, every fight with Sarah, every quiet prayer I'd whispered in the dark, and he loved me anyway. Wilson, he said again, his voice a melody, a command vibrating through me. You are here for a reason. My mind reeled, questions tumbling. Why me? What reason? But my mouth stayed silent, useless. He didn't need my words. He saw my heart, raw, exposed. You must return, he said, firm, urgent, his gaze steady, unyielding. Panic flared. Return? No, I'm here with you, safe. But before I could protest, he stepped closer, his light pulsing, swelling, and the world shifted beneath me. Suddenly, I wasn't above the crash anymore. I was everywhere. Earth sprawled before me, vivid, split open like a wound. On the surface, life ticked along. Toronto's skyline glittered. Kids chased dogs in parks. Traffic snarled on highways. Normal, mundane, alive. But beneath, oh God, beneath, it was war. Shadows moved, dark, slithering, alive with malice. They crept into homes, a mother cooking dinner, a father scrolling his phone, into offices, churches, whispering, always whispering. You're enough, they purred to a woman staring at a mirror, hollow-eyed. God's forgotten you, they hissed to a man in a pew, head bowed. My chest tightened, my voice breaking free. Lord, I cried, trembling. They don't hear it, they don't see. His face softened, sorrow etching deep lines. That, he said, voice heavy, aching, is the greatest deception. The vision twisted, fast, relentless. Now I saw tomorrow, not far, not distant, but breathing down our necks. Cities towered, sleek, humming with tech, screens everywhere, drones buzzing, people plugged in. I saw a man, ordinary, tired, step into a store. No wallet, no cash, just a wave of his hand, a glow under his skin, faint, eerie. The cashier nodded, the sale clicked, done. My stomach churned, cold dread creeping up my spine. Lord, I whispered, voice cracking, is this it? The mark? He shook his head, slow, deliberate, his eyes piercing. Not yet, he said, soft, grave, but this is how it begins. He peeled back more, layer by layer, and I wept. Couldn't help it. It started small, innocent, a chip for convenience, a scan instead of cards, keys, papers. I saw lines forming, people chatting, excited. No more lost wallets. Then it shifted. Stores refused cash, then cards, then anything else. Jobs demanded it. No chip, no paycheck. Schools too. For safety, they said. Hospitals turned away the unchipped, their doors cold, unyielding. I saw a woman, young, scared, clutching a sick child, begging, please, he's dying. The nurse shook her head, regretful but firm. No implant, no entry. My fists clenched, useless, ethereal, but rage burned, hot, helpless. Subscribe to this channel, I'd say here, voice thick with emotion, leaning closer. Because what's coming next, it's heavy, it's real, and you need to hear it. The vision darkened, suffocating. A family sat at dinner, mom smiling, dad joking, kids giggling. But it was wrong, hollow. Their words echoed, mechanical. Their eyes flickered with that same eerie glow. Implants pulsed in their wrists, faint lights behind their pupils. They thought they chose their laughter, their love, but it was coded, fed to them. I turned to Jesus, tears streaming, not water, but something deeper, soul deep. Why can't they see? I sobbed, voice raw, breaking. He sighed, a sound like wind through a broken world. Because, he said soft, mournful, they've given up their ability to hear me. The vision pressed on, relentless, suffocating. I saw that family again, mom, dad, the two kids, around that dinner table. Their laughter tinny, rehearsed like a recording played on loop. The mom passed a bowl of mashed potatoes, her smile perfect, too perfect, her wrist glowing faintly with that damned implant. The dad cracked a joke, something about the weather, but his eyes, they flickered, unnatural, like a screen buffering. The kids nodded, giggled, their responses timed, robotic, their own wrists pulsing with that same eerie light. I wanted to scream, to smash that table, to shake them awake, but I was nothing, just a witness, a ghost, trapped in his light. Lord, I choked, my voice raw, pleading, they're gone, aren't they? Jesus didn't answer, not with words. His silence was heavier, sadder than anything he could have said. Then it shifted, fast, dizzying, and I saw the world splitting wider. On one side, the chipped, millions of them, moved through life like ants, orderly, efficient, empty. Cities gleamed, towers of glass and steel, screens flashing ads for the next upgrade, the next implant. People scanned their hands to buy coffee, to board trains, to breathe, it seemed. Their faces were calm, content, but their eyes, God, their eyes, were hollow, dead, like windows to nothing. I saw a woman in a church kneeling, lips moving in prayer, but no sound reached me. No light touched her. Her wrist glowed, her faith dimmed, snuffed out by wires and whispers. My chest ached, a sob clawing up my throat. They don't even know, I whispered, trembling. They think they're free. On the other side, the faithful, fewer, scattered, hunted. They hid in shadows, basements with cracked concrete, forests thick with mist, homes abandoned by a world that didn't want them. I saw a man bearded, weary, kneeling in a dim room, his hands clasped, his lips moving fast, fervent. No implant marked him, no glow betrayed him, just faith, raw, unshakable. Minutes later, a knock, soft, hesitant, and a stranger slipped in, a bag of bread in hand, unasked, unearned. I saw a mother, thin, tired, rationing soup for her kids, her spoon scraping an empty pot that somehow filled again. Miracles, quiet, real, stitched into their struggle. Tears burned my eyes, not from sorrow, but awe, hope, a flicker of something fierce. Lord, I breathed, voice shaking, you're with them. Jesus nodded, slow, solemn, his presence steady, grounding. My people will not be abandoned, he said, his voice low, firm, a promise carved in stone. As I fed Elijah with the ravens, as I led Israel through the wilderness, I will care for those who remain faithful. His words hit me, hard, deep, like a hammer on my soul. I saw it then, a woman, sick, feverish, lying on a cot, her breath rattling. A child pressed a hand to her forehead, praying, simple, desperate, Jesus, please. And before my eyes, her skin cooled, her chest eased, her eyes fluttered open. Healing, protection, provision. They glowed around the faithful, a light no tech could mimic, no shadow could touch. But the darkness came. Oh, it came. The vision twisted, and I saw it swell. Thick, black, alive, rolling over the earth like a storm no one could outrun. The chips stood still, blind, oblivious, their implants pulsing as if in rhythm with it. A man scanned his hand for a meal, smiled, sat, ate, unaware of the shadow curling around his feet. A woman checked her kids into school, kissed them goodbye, never saw the tendrils snaking up the walls. My heart pounded, my voice breaking free. Lord, they don't see it, I cried, frantic, helpless. He didn't flinch, his gaze steady, piercing. They've chosen blindness, he said, soft, sorrowful, and I wept, couldn't stop it, didn't want to. Then light, blinding, fierce, erupting from the sky like 1,000 suns. It slashed through the dark, pure, unstoppable, and the faithful. They saw it, felt it, lifted their faces to it. A woman in a forest dropped to her knees, sobbing, laughing, arms raised. A man in a basement clutched a tattered Bible, tears streaming, whispering, "You're here." The chipped. They didn't move, didn't blink, didn't notice. The light wasn't for them. I turned to Jesus, trembling, my voice a ragged whisper. "What is this?" His answer was final, absolute, a blade through my core. The division of souls. That hit me. Harder than the crash, harder than death. Division, souls. I saw it play out. Two futures unspooling side by side. The chipped world gleamed. Perfect streets, perfect lives, perfect lies. Transactions flowed, health stabilized, emotions dulled. A man hugged his wife, but his arms moved slow, mechanical, his smile programmed. A child sang in school, but the words were empty, her eyes blank. Churches stood packed but silent. No fire, no spirit, just echoes of what was. My stomach twisted, bile rising. "They've lost you," I whispered, voice cracking, tears falling free. Jesus nodded, his face etched with grief, a grief I felt in my bones. The faithful's world was harder, rawer, realer. They ran, hunted by laws, by tech, by neighbors who'd once been friends. I saw a father barter his coat for milk, his breath fogging in the cold, his kids shivering but alive. I saw a teenager scribble scripture on a wall, defiant, bold, her hands shaking but her heart blazing. They struggled, oh, they struggled. Hunger gnawed, fear stalked. But they lived. Joy sparked in their eyes, sorrow carved their prayers, and Jesus, he walked with them. I saw him not in form, but in the bread that appeared, the wounds that healed, the peace that held them. "Lord," I sobbed, voice raw, "they're yours." He turned to me then, his eyes urgent, loving, fierce. "Wilson," he said, his voice a thunder in a whisper, "tell them, warn them." My heart seized. Tell them? Me? But he pressed on, relentless. Some will listen, some will wake, but time is short. I wanted to beg, to stay, to cling to him, his light, his peace, his everything. But before I could, a pull gripped me, gentle, then fierce, yanking me back. His smile flashed, warm, eternal, then faded. I hurtled through light, shadow, a tunnel of nothing and everything, screaming, "No, wait!" But it was too late. Cold slammed into me, heavy, brutal. My chest heaved, lungs burning, gasping, choking on air I hadn't needed moments ago. A shrill beep, beep, beep drilled my ears, voices shouting, overlapping. "We've got a pulse! He's back!" My eyes fluttered, weak, blurry, met by blinding hospital lights, stark, sterile. A doctor loomed, face pale, eyes wide, frozen in shock. "Captain Wilson," he said, voice trembling, "can you hear me?" I nodded, barely, my body led. Every muscle screaming, every bone aching. Nurses rushed, frantic. Monitors blipped, hands pressed, needles pricked. "I can't believe it," one whispered, her voice shaking. "He was gone. 7 minutes, no pulse, no breath." The doctor leaned closer, his breath hot, urgent. "Wilson, what happened?" I swallowed, throat dry, cracked, my mind racing. Jesus, the crash, the warning. But my voice faltered, weak, raspy. "I saw him," I croaked. "Jesus!" The room stilled, air thick, heavy. The doctor blinked, curious, skeptical, the nurses glancing, some wide-eyed, some turning away. The young one, tears brimming, stepped closer, her voice soft, pleading. "Tell me," she said, "what did you see?" And I did. Oh, I did. "I died," I said, voice breaking, raw, floated above my body, saw the wreck, the flames, me, dead. Then he came, Jesus, radiant, real, told me I had to come back, to warn you, all of you. Awe lit her face. Doubt shadowed others. But I didn't care, I couldn't stop. Subscribe to this channel, I'd say here. Voice thick, urgent, leaning in. Because this isn't just my story. It's yours, it's everyone's. And we're not done yet. 6 months later, I sit here, writing this, my hands trembling, my soul haunted, not by fear, but by urgency, by what I saw unfolding. I left that hospital weak, bruised, alive, but changed, sharper, clearer, like I'd been reborn with eyes I didn't have before. The news blares it daily, digital implants, biometric scans, the future of security. They cheer. I see lines forming, people grinning, rolling up sleeves, blind to the whispers, the shadows I saw. Churches stay quiet, too quiet, pastors soothing. It's just progress. God's fine with it. But I know what's coming, what Jesus showed me. That first night home, Sarah held me sobbing, her arms tight, her tears soaking my shirt. I thought I'd lost you, she whispered, voice breaking, raw. I held her back, silent, my heart pounding. I did lose me, and I found him. She asked later, soft, hesitant, what happened up there? I told her everything. The crash, the light, Jesus, the warning. Her eyes widened, then softened, belief flickering, fragile. Wilson, she said, voice trembling, what do we do? I gripped her hand, firm, desperate. We pray, I said. We watch. We stay close to him, because it's starting. Every day since, I've watched it creep closer. A man on TV brags, no more wallets, just scan your hand. A kid at the store waves his wrist, proud, oblivious. Laws shift. Banks push chips. Jobs demand them. Schools hint at it. I see the faithful too. Quiet, small, growing.